We now look at a legacy of societal transformation and challenge toward transformation. Christians in the period from Pentecost to the fall of Rome challenged and at times progressively transformed the societal mores of the Roman Empire with reference to the value of human life and the virtue of sexual purity. I look now at the value on human life. That Roman culture placed very little value on human life is well known. Romans were not only accustomed to emperors like Nero, Domitian, Decius, and Diocletian, and other societal leaders who were murderous of rivals, whether Christians and even of family members. But the horrible gladiatorial games were as popular then as football is in many nations today. Each contest required men to fight men, commonly with the aim of killing the opponents with a sword. It was the crowd that largely decided the fate of a weakened, gasping gladiator. A turned thumb signal, usually given by women spectators, instructed the victor to go for the final blow. Often, it was the women who praised gladiators. The barbaric cruelty, the agonizing screams of the victims, and the flow of human blood stirred no conscience in the crowds of the gladiatorial events. To see a gladiator stab and slice his opponent to death was top-ranked amusement. Christians boycotted and denounced the games and attracted criticism. One critic of the Christians said, quote, "You do not go to our shows. You take no part in our processions. You shrink in horror from our sacred games," unquote. Peter's call to live uprightly amidst slander and to suffer with pride for doing good and for being a Christian, 1 Peter 2:12 and 3:9-17 and 4:12-19, may reflect the emerging trend of verbal attacks on Christians for being countercultural in lifestyle. The gladiatorial games were eventually banned owing to the influence of the church. As W.E.H. Lecky concludes, quote, "There is scarcely any single reform so important in the moral history of mankind as the suppression of the gladiatorial shows, a feat that must be almost exclusively ascribed to the Christian church," unquote. Roman culture, too, like several others in the ancient world, was completely at ease with infanticide and child abandonment, which the church opposed on biblical principles. Plutarch, roughly AD 46 to 120, says of the Carthaginians that they, quote, "offered up their own children, and those who had no children would buy little ones from poor people and cut their throats as if they were so many lambs or young birds. Meanwhile, the mother stood by without a tear or moan," unquote. Even the philosopher Seneca, roughly 4 BC to AD 65, chief advisor to Nero, said, quote, "We drown children who at birth are weakly and abnormal," unquote. Christians did not only denounce the entrenched Greek and Roman cultural practice of child abandonment, but they also provided refuge for abandoned children. Infanticide and child abandonment were made capital offenses in 374 under the Christian Emperor Valentinian, who was influenced by Bishop Basil of Caesarea. Though infanticide was not completely wiped out, recurring in later centuries, the consistent opposition of the Church is what has influenced anti-infanticide laws up to the present time. Crucifixion in the hands of the Romans approximated an art form, albeit a despicable one, and it was outlawed by Constantine owing to his high regard for the Christian cross. We look now at the issue of sexual morality. Christianity's elevation of sexual morality based on the Bible has exerted a tremendous transforming influence on societies ancient and modern. Whereas the Christian sexual ethic outlawed all sex acts, except heterosexual, monogamous acts, the conventions of the Roman Empire, and not a few modern societies, countenanced a no-holds-barred approach as people in general did sexually whatever, however, wherever, with whomever, or whatever. Not only is the evidence in literature, but also in archaeology. And these have turned up sexual graphics covering a wide spectrum of sexual acts on household items in the Roman Empire.